If anyone ever complains about the songs in Magical Mystery Cure to me ever again, I will fight you on the side of the street. This is the big one. People hate A Pal for Gary, and people hate The Splinter, but none of them come close to how hated Atlantis Squarepantis is. It has topped more worst of lists than any other episode of SpongeBob. Think of that. Think of what I've reviewed so far. Yeah, people hate this episode more than any of those. Why is that? Well, for starters, Atlantis Squarepantis did to my ears what The Splinter did to my eyes. But let's go deeper into why this is such a terrible piece of crap. It starts with SpongeBob blowing bubbles. Patrick tries to take a picture of them, but they keep popping before he gets the opportunity. Patrick blames the camera.
No, it is the very nature of the fragile bubble. Allow me to demonstrate.
Does this really merit a song? Okay, then. Besides the fact that this is a song explaining that bubbles pop, the lyrics are extremely forced.
Like presents on Christmas Day, it doesn't seem to stay, or a cheese souffle.
Keep in mind that this is the first song of the episode. This is them putting their best foot forward. And at the end of this first song, the music already starts to grate on my ears. At the end of that totally not pointless song, SpongeBob blows a bubble that encases the both of them. It lifts them off the ground and sends them careening into a random cave. The bubble pops on a half of some kind of ancient artifact. After some phoned-in slapstick, SpongeBob decides to take the artifact to the Bikini Bottom Museum. We cut to Mr. Krabs being his usual greedy self, charging people to get into the museum on a day when it's supposed to be free. When he's almost reported, he ducks inside the building. And it just so happens that Squidward is already there. He calls the artifact the Amulet of Atlantis, and thinks that SpongeBob stole it.
This is a new low even for you two.
Yeah, give it a season or two. It turns out that SpongeBob didn't steal the Amulet of Atlantis, but found the other half of it. While Squidward is ranting on about Atlantis, I'm just thinking of if the writers actually know what an amulet is. You know, a small object made to be worn around your neck, not a big fat medallion.
This great city disappeared one day, but no ruins were ever found.
Yeah, they're not going to explain why that is. In fact, the way the story is written, it seems like calling Atlantis a lost civilization would be like calling Iceland a lost civilization. SpongeBob and Patrick learn of the oldest living bubble that currently resides in Atlantis.
Fucking bubbles!
I love it when characters are so wonderfully motivated. Come on, really? A fucking bubble? You guys can do better than that. Then again, maybe you can't. But I expect you to at least try. Oh, and Sandy just so happens to be at the museum, randomly butting into their conversation about Atlantis. So we've spent like 3 minutes establishing that Mr. Krabs likes money, Squidward likes art, SpongeBob and Patrick like bubbles, and Sandy likes science. And then Sandy tells them to put the amulet together, and that will open the way to Atlantis. Squidward is able to do this because the museum doesn't have any security or any other guests. The amulet shoots a laser, which causes a van to drop out of the ceiling. Then the amulet goes into the van because it's magic. Inside the van, we get to see the Atlantis Squarepantis video game. You know, it's very hard work to blend 2D characters with 3D animation. It's a good thing these guys aren't even trying. Unfortunately, the van is out of fuel for forward motion. That's a pretty cheap amulet. Give them a van, but don't give them the fuel to do anything with it. So our heroes push the van out of the museum, carrying one of the museum's artifacts, to a gas station. But it doesn't have a gas tank because it doesn't run on fossil fuels. Instead, it runs on song, which means that they have to sing in order to get to Atlantis.
Does that make any sense?
No, but I'm game for singing any day.
What I'm doing is stupid. I know it's stupid, but I'm gonna do it anyway. Good on ya! This isn't exactly what I'd call singing, though.
To a land where all our dreams can finally come true.
This is throwing a bunch of random genres into a blender and hoping you'll get something remotely pleasing.
Make money, more than you can spend, with 5s and 10s and 50s that all want to be your friend.
The lyrics, once again, are abysmal.
With all their advanced science and my painfully enlarged mind, I bet we can figure out how to make wondrous things, like melons with edible rinds.
And it tells us what this episode already established, and what the show itself already established in previous episodes. The only thing of substance that this song manages to do is shoehorn Plankton into the plot. Eventually the van realizes that they can't hold a note to save their life, and crashes them down into Atlantis. So this lost civilization was only a quick flight over yonder. Good to know. My car keys are more lost than this lost civilization. They come to a bell that tells them to ring for the king. And after some pointless fanfare, we get this pile of blue snot mucus. And some more phoned-in slapstick. This is the Lord Royal Highness, and he's voiced by David Bowie. Hey, go back to cinematic excrement. I will use my own jokes, thank you. Anyway, this Lord Royal Highness decides to give these complete strangers a tour of his city. Then we cut to Plankton, who wants to get to Atlantean weaponry, and he escapes from an exhaust pipe. Question, writers, what kind of exhaust does Song create?
If I'd only known when I woke up today, I'd have stopped at me tailors along the way.
Oh yeah, thanks for reminding me. Blood. Lord Royal Highness shows Mr. Krabs the treasury. I would say that the lyrics are forced, but it's more like they're struggling in desperation.
Hey, look at all this money. I hope me heart can take it. Well, I'm all right, sonny.
At a certain point, they start using different styles. I've seen the behind the scenes for Atlantis Squarepantis, and this is what they're proud of. You know, in this case figuring out what the fuck Adobe Flash is. I'm not against a show using a different art style than what they normally do, but they've got to have a reason for it, beyond substituting style for substance. As for the actual song, let's not kid ourselves. They put together some crap telling us what we already know because they couldn't use the song that they wanted to use. Yeah, this is a major ripoff of Willy Wonka. After Krabs' song, he's out of the group. Then they go to a lab full of high-tech gear. Yeah, that looks so futuristic. It looks like the Commodore 64 would have more functionality on it. Exercise some creativity! If you want to show us a lab, give us some of those electric orbs, Tesla coils going off, or maybe even an everlasting gobstopper machine. Instead, we get a machine that turns anything into ice cream. The practical applications for that are infinite. Then they come across a machine that will allow people to fight germs hand to hand. Definitely more practical than coming up with vaccines. You guys are ahead of the game. SpongeBob, Squidward, and Patrick accidentally use the machine.
Right now, his molecules are being broken down into data, then reassembled on a much smaller scale.
And then you could pull them right out of your television on the other side. Give me a fucking break. It turns out that this extremely advanced civilization was working on fighting the sniffles, not some more deadly disease. So Sandy goes into an NES game. Actually, that's not fair. NES games put effort into their visuals, their enemy designs, and their sound direction. Speaking of which, it's about that time. First of all, Sandy can't sing in the slightest.
Your days are numbered, 'cause Sandy's here.
The lyrics try to disguise their lackluster effort by shoehorning in science terms and video game references. Then the song ends. You know what we haven't had in a while? Another fucking song! That's right, this gives us 2 songs back to back, and this next one has to be the worst song in the whole damn episode. It's Plankton's song, and Doug Lawrence can't sing either.
So many weapons, how do I choose? Look at this one, what a beautiful fuse. That one would surely give them the blues. And this one here matches my shoes.
Not only are the lyrics bad and forced, it seems like it needs to stick to an AA rhyme scheme. Sometimes. Back to what laughably could be called the story. Squidward wants to see some actual Atlantean culture. Trust me, buddy, no you don't.
Gentlemen, what is art?
The most stupid question I've ever heard in my life.
Art is what happens when you learn to dream.
And this is the part where he starts singing pure imagination. Actually, no. Despite David Bowie being an actual singer, he's the only character in the episode that doesn't have a musical number. Speaking of which, it's Squidward's turn.
The creativity, the artistry.
Yeah, creativity and artistry from other actually talented people. They're just putting Squidward into famous paintings haphazardly. Plankton's song may be the worst, but this song is just stretching itself way too hard.
Take it from an undersea Renaissance man. I'd even look great on the side of your van.
The wind instruments in the background sound incredibly tired. It almost feels like a damn lullaby. After 20 goddamn minutes, we're finally gonna see that godforsaken bubble, but not without a little bit more build-up, or a half-assed attempt at it. Apparently this bubble was brought on foot, millions of light years, through space, to their new civilization because I don't fucking know. That's the most stupid thing that I've ever heard. And I just fucking watched Tentaclino. How do you accomplish that? The same way they accomplished making this episode even more stupid.
So I'm just going to leave you 2 friendly strangers alone with our most ancient and fragile Atlantean relic.
I don't know what could possibly... Oh, who gives a crap? They try to take a picture of the bubble, and after they do, it pops. That's funny. Back at the beginning, the bubbles were popping before the camera went off. If they can't get the big details down, why am I expecting them to get the small ones? We cut to the others eating SpaghettiOs. Alright then.
I've learned more about painting in a few hours here than I did in 4 years of community college.
Oh, so it's like the internet. SpongeBob and Patrick come in noticeably shaken. They want to leave, and when questioned, Patrick spills the beans.
Ha ha ha! If there's one thing we Atlanteans enjoy, it's a healthy dose of dark humor.
Yeah, that cements it. Zeus Service is the king of Atlantis, but it turns out that they didn't destroy the bubble, and the Lord Royal Highness reveals the real one, which Patrick pauses the camera. You know, if I didn't like the show even the slightest bit, I would call that totally pointless. Oh wait, I don't! That was the most fucking pointless thing that I've ever seen in my life! And then we get to the climax. Sandy does all the fighting using everyone as props against totally incompetent guards with useless weapons. And now SpongeBob, Patrick, and Mr. Krabs can hold their own right. Then they're stopped by Plankton, who has a huge tank that ends up shooting ice cream. Yeah, that's not insulting at all. Do you know what I find funny? They give this away in the commercials, but they don't tell us that it's a musical. Who gives away the climax of an episode, but not the fact that it's a musical?
Why, you've become an alicorn. I didn't even know that was possible.
Point taken. Plankton ends up becoming the Atlanteans' new national treasure. Wow, you guys get over something you figured out how to carry billions of light years on foot through the void of space somehow pretty damn easy. The group gets shoot onto the bus, the amulet gets thrown away, and we end on a good contender for the worst song of the episode. And that was Atlantis Squarepantis, a ratings trap that barely had any plot. The first one of them anyway. Yeah, considering SpongeBob You're Fired, they're still doing shit like this. Anytime that the story didn't take a break to throw us into a song, it was stealing from Willy Wonka. And the songs themselves? They're horrible, rancid, and juvenile. Say what you want about Behold Twilight Sparkle. At least it sounds nice. Especially compared to the schlock that these 4 assholes shoveled down our throats. Say what you want about Magical Mystery Cure, but at least it told its own story. It was at least trying, and didn't rely on stupid visual gimmicks that didn't require any real effort. Speaking of that, one writer, guys. One writer. I'm the mysterious Mr. Enter, and I'm out.